is in honor of Ilu Nishmas Sipora Rachel Bas Simcha, whose yard site is Shushan Purim, Neshama Shepin Aliyah, and Bezos Hashem, their name should be a schus for Neshama. The subject tonight is Amalek, and Mechias Amalek. And before we even come to Reb Tzadok, to properly appreciate this, we have to have some introductions, some hagdomas. You know, there are many ancient peoples that are not remembered at all today, except by scholars of ancient Middle Eastern history, various tribes, various groups. But generally, the memory of these groups, these nations, these tribes is forgotten. Amalek certainly would have been forgotten. I don't think historians even identify a group named Amalek. So it would have been forgotten. Why is it not forgotten? Because we perpetuate its memory. Because every year, Parshas Zohar, we remember Amalek, we read Parshas B'Shalach, Parshas Kiseitze, again, we recall Amalek. So the truth is, who's keeping the memory of Amalek alive? Klal Yisrael. Because if not for Klal Yisrael's remembering Amalek, Amalek would have been long forgotten. So it doesn't make any sense. The Torah says, Timcha Zecher Amalek. Wipe out the memory of Amalek. So what does the Torah want? That Amalek should be forgotten. And Amalek would be forgotten. Why is it not being forgotten? Because we're remembering it. So it doesn't make any sense. How can it be a mitzvah of Zohar to remember Amalek, and on the other hand, Timcha Zecher Amalek? Let's not remember Amalek, and then Amalek will be forgotten. Well, the answer is very pashut. But to really understand the depth of the answer, we really have to go very deeply. The answer is, the Torah doesn't want Amalek just to slip out of mankind's memory. The Torah wants Amalek to be destroyed. If Amalek is merely forgotten, people become oblivious to it, evil has not been destroyed. Evil has just gone into hiding. The Torah wants Timcha. The Torah wants to destroy evil. So to destroy evil, you have to perpetuate it. Perpetuate its memory, that is. Because if it's forgotten, then it still exists. It's concealed. You don't notice it. But if what you really want is to destroy it, so you have to always be aware of where it is to be able to destroy it. So
remission.
Pardon?
It's remission.
Yeah, it's not a stira. Right? If you want a real mechia, a real destruction of Amalek, you have to be conscious of where it is and that it exists, and then you work to destroy it. But otherwise, it just disappears out of our awareness, but it isn't really destroyed. It isn't really a mechia. That's the basic answer. But to really understand this, how this works, we have to lay down some basic hagdomas. And you may remember this. This is material we covered about 14 years ago. So I'm sure you remember it. The Ramchal in the Sefer Derech Hashem devotes a lot of attention to the way in which the world works, in which God runs the world. And he says like this, he says, every physical object that exists in this world is really the bottom link of a chain. Underlying this physical object, there are spiritual kochos, spiritual forces. Above those spiritual forces, there are higher spiritual forces. Above those, in turn, there are even higher spiritual forces. There's a spiritual hierarchy. The bottom link of the chain is the physical object. But behind it, and behind that, and behind that, and behind that, there is a chain of spiritual forces. The highest spiritual force, the highest link in this chain, is attached to Ribono Shel Olam. Now, when the Ribono Shel Olam wishes to effect change on the created world, says the Ramchal, HaKadosh Baruch Hu acts upon the highest spiritual force, and the effect trickles down. So the highest kayach is impacted, and the change is transmitted to the next lower kayach, and the next lower kayach, and the next lower kayach. Milmalo lamata, from above to below, until the change becomes manifest all the way down in the physical object on earth. When a human being acts upon a physical object, it's the opposite. He acts upon the physical object below, but the impact of his actions then affects the spiritual kayach that underlies that object, and beyond and beyond and beyond. Milmata le mama. So therefore, the truth is that both HaKadosh Baruch Hu and man have the power to act upon the entire hierarchy of existence. As the Nefesh HaChaim says, that's the idea of Tselem Elokim. Just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu is called Elokim. Elokim means Baal HaKolchos. He is the master of all spiritual forces. So a person is B'Tselem Elokim, meaning that just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu acts on the entire hierarchy of spiritual forces, man also has the power to act in the entire hierarchy of spiritual forces, just that it works in opposite directions. That when HaKadosh Baruch Hu acts upon it, it's milmalo lamata, it's from above, downward, below. And when man works upon it, it's milmato lamala, it's from below, and the effect ascends to the highest shayrish above. The Ramchal also goes on to explain a very interesting thing about the nature of Ra, the nature of evil. And the Ramchal says two very interesting things about evil. One is that all evil in the world has a common root. All evil in the world has a common root. And we say all evil in the world, there are a lot of things that are evil in the world. There are things that are destructive, things that are harmful. But even more than that, even the potential to use an object for evil means that evil has spread its tentacles into that object. Take the sefer. You think, what could be evil about the sefer? But in theory, if I would want, I could take the sefer and hit you over the head with it, which would be a very evil thing. So this sefer, even this holy sefer, has the potential to be used for evil.
The person does not the sefer.
No, but it could be used as a tool for evil. But you're right, I would be doing it. But the fact that it can be used, right, means that it contains within it the potential for evil.
Is there anything with Devil?
That's right. Evil has spread its root into everything. Whereas from this common shirish of evil, it has spread into everything, every person, every object, things that we would consider destructive, things we would consider constructive. The evil has spread into everything. Another interesting thing about this shirish of evil, says the Ramchal, is that it is activated in an opposite way of everything else in the world. Let's say, for example, you have a blade of grass. And the blade of grass, again, is backed up by a spiritual kayach, and a higher spiritual kayach, and a higher spiritual kayach. Let's say God wants to encourage this blade of grass to grow, to develop, to prosper, to improve, to become better. So what does the HaKadosh Baruch Hu do on the higher level? He infuses the highest spiritual kayach with his light, with his hashpah. There is an abundance of energy which is added to the system, and that abundance of energy trickles down, till it reaches the blade of grass, and that fosters growth and fruitfulness. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu would want that blade of grass to shrivel and die, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu would hold back the light. He'd hold back the energy, and then the blade of grass all the way down would be deprived of its yinika, of its sustenance, and then the grass would shrivel. Ra is the opposite. Because there's a Ma'amar Chazal that says, Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu miyachet shmo al ra. God does not associate his name with evil. So the shayrish of Ra is constructed in such a way that when God withholds his light, that shayrish is activated. I once gave a mashal. I think it's a gewaldige mashal. A doorbell. When you ring a doorbell, so it's not like a regular electric appliance. Normally, when you want to turn on the lights, for example, you turn on the switch, that closes the circuit, and energy flows to the bulb. I have scientists here, right? The doorbells work the opposite way. In other words, there's a magnet that holds the clapper away from the bell. Right? When you press the doorbell, you break the circuit, So now the magnet doesn't hold the clapper back, and the spring pushes the clapper into the bell, and that's how it rings. That's why when you press the button in the doorbell, the light goes out. Because the electric circuit goes through the button, so you can see where the button is. When you press it, you actually are breaking the circuit, that's how the light goes out, and that's how the bell is activated. So a doorbell is the opposite of a regular electric appliance. It isn't activated by the current going through it, it's activated by withholding the current, by breaking the circuit. I said good? Good. Okay. So that's the Shirish of Ra is also that way. Now the way the Shirish of Ra is activated is that when God withholds his light, that Shirish is activated and Ra is strengthened. And when Ra is strengthened at the root, then all the branches are also strengthened. Now again, because effects travel both milmata lamala and milmala lamata, it comes at a very interesting thing, that when any branch of evil is strengthened, evil is strengthened globally. Because what happens is that at this one branch, evil is strengthened, the effect travels milmata lamala until the unified root, the common root of all evil, and then from the common root of all evil, it descends to all the branches milmala lamata. Now, interestingly, good doesn't work the same way, because good things do not have a common shirish, but evil does. And that's why evil is a very, very dangerous thing, because
it goes from down, up, and up.
And then, once it reaches the common shirish of all evil, it goes milmala lamata. So in other words, if an evil takes place in Toronto, it'll affect people in Paris, in South Africa. And that's the famous statement of Rabbi Eliezer Breitowitz. He said that if a Yid does an Avera Kala in Vilna, then another Yid is Machal Shabbos in Paris. So what does it mean? Why is that? This is the mechanism. This is how it works. Because when you strengthen evil at one of the outposts, at one of the branches, so the effect travels milmata lamala to the shirish of Ra, and then milmala lamata to all the anafim, to all the branches of Ra. Conversely, when you destroy Ra in a place, you weaken Ra globally. Because again, when the branch of Ra is weakened, so again, the effect travels to the shirish of Ra, and there's a weakening of Ra at the shirish, and then there's a weakening of Ra at all the anafim. Now, kimuvan, when we talk about the extent to which an action at the branch weakens the root, it depends how thick the branch is. Are we talking about a little twig, or are we talking about a real solid branch? Because Amalek is a very, very strong branch of Ra. And therefore, when you destroy Amalek, when you weaken Amalek, that has a very strong effect on the shirish of Ra, and that weakens Ra globally. And that's the importance of Mechias Amalek. Because if Amalek will just be forgotten, then nothing really happened. The Anaf, the branch of Amalek, was not weakened. So, likewise, there's no effect at the shirish either. So it just disappeared. We're oblivious to it. We're unaware of it. It's not on our radar screens. That's not what the Torah wants. The Torah wants us to destroy Amalek. Why? Because when you destroy Amalek, it's not just Amalek you're destroying. You are weakening Ra Bechla. You're weakening Ra throughout the Bria in a very important way, because Amalek is a very strong Anaf of Ra. And that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. And therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, don't forget Amalek. Don't let it disappear. Don't lose your consciousness of it. You have to know where it is, who it is, what they did, and destroy them. So that's why we have this amazing irony, that who's perpetuating the memory of Amalek? We are. But that's why, because we have to destroy you. Now, just to bring this down to earth in a very interesting way, we'll do a little Tzaddik, don't worry. But this is a very, very important idea that the Baal HaTanya talks about, and this is the understanding of it. We pointed out also many years ago. The Baal HaTanya is a very interesting sefer. The Tanya has a subtitle. It's called Sefer Shel Beinanim. Sefer Shel Beinanim. L'chutei Amorim, Sefer Shel Beinanim. Now, that's an unusual name for a sefer, Sefer Shel Beinanim. Most of the Sifrei Musar we have, they exhort us to piety, Mesilas Yesharim, Archas Tzadikim. The goal is to become Beinani sounds like mediocre. This is like the book of mediocrity. I mean, a lot of people seem to practice that, but it's not something we should want. See, the Baal HaTanya uses the term Beinani in a very, very technical sense. There's a Gemara that says like this: Tzadikim Yetzer HaTov Sheiftam. Tzadikim are controlled by the Yetzer Tov. Meaning their Yetzer Hara has essentially been obliterated. Either they were born without one or they managed to destroy it. And the only motivating factor in their lives is the Yetzer Tov. Rishoyim Yetzer Hara Sheiftam. Rishoyim, the only motivating factor in their lives is the Yetzer Hara. Essentially the Yetzer Tov doesn't exist for them. Beinanim Zev Zeh Sheiftam. The Beinanim are conflicted. The Beinanim live in a life of conflict, of tension with the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara. Not Chas v'Shalom that they ever do an Aveira. They never fail. They always succeed in overcoming the Yetzer Hara. But there's a conflict. In other words, what the Baal HaTanya calls a tzaddik and what he calls a Beinani correspond to the two categories that the Rambam refers to in the Shemona Prakim. He calls them the chassid and the kovesh es yitzro. The chassid is a person who lives in a perfect state of harmony. That his desires and his actions are beautifully consistent. He has no desire for evil. He has no yitzhar, no taivas. His whole life is just wanting to do the right thing, and he does the right thing, and he's perfectly, there's perfect peace of mind, and it's a wonderful, wonderful life. The kovesh es yitzro is a person who's conflicted. Internally, there's this debate: should I do this? Should I do that? I go here, go there. But he overcomes it, and he does the right thing. So the Baal HaTanya uses different terminology. He uses the term tzaddik for the person that the Rambam calls a chassid, meaning the person who lives that life of spiritual harmony. And what the Rambam calls the kovesh es yitzro, he calls the Beinani. Now, there's one very important difference between the Baal HaTanya's position and the Rambam's position. The Rambam believes, his shita is, that a person has the power to turn himself from a kovesh es yitzro to a chassid. There is a methodology for behavior modification, for personality modification, that a person could actually change himself, he could work on himself, and become a chassid. You could essentially eliminate your Yetzer Hara. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's not like overnight you decide, yeah, I'm going to do it. It might take years and years of work, but it is possible. And the Rambam holds that the promise, the understanding that we have free will, which is really a promise in the Torah, right, is a assurance that we have that type of free will, that we could actually convert ourselves to people that are perfectly at peace with doing the right thing. The Baal HaTanya says no. The Baal HaTanya says that it isn't necessarily so. It may be so for some people, but for other people it's not that way. There are people who were sent to this world, and their mission in life is to serve Hashem in a state of conflict. To always be grappling with their Yetzer Hara, to always be fighting, and of course they have the power to make proper choices. But to eliminate their Yetzer Hara, that they don't have the power to do. This is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu decreed. For some people it might not be that way, but there are some people, their mission in life, their avodah in life is to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu that way, with that type of conflict. Now this has many corollaries. One of them is that let's say a person really has tried to overcome a Yetzer Hara, and he just can't. And he probably feels very, very bad that, why do I have this terrible lust, this terrible Yetzer Hara? Well, Tanya says, don't feel so bad. Maybe you are one of those Beinanim, upon whom it was decreed that you have to have this Yetzer Hara, and there's really nothing you can do to eliminate it. Obviously, you don't have to indulge it, You're meant not to follow it, but to obliterate it, to destroy it, that's not in your capacity. Now, the Sefer, Tanya, was written for those people. That's called Sefer Shalbeinim. It doesn't mean the book of mediocrity. It means the book of people, for people, upon whom it was decreed that they have to live with this type of conflict, this type of tension. And probably many of us fall into that category.